Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Kev's Movie Corner. I am Kev, and this week we are talking about Taxi Driver. This movie was released in 1976. Brief synopsis is a mentally unstable veteran works as a nighttime taxi driver in New York City, where the perceived decadence and sleaze fuels his urge for violent action. It stars Robert De Niro as the main character Travis, Jodie Foster, a very young Jodie Foster as Iris, and Cybill Shepherd as Betsy. Those are your main characters in this movie. This movie is rated R for violence, sexual content, and language. We'll get to that, more on that in a minute. But this was an interesting movie. It is a psychological drama. I will say that it took a little while for me to get into this. It's a very tense movie for a good chunk of it. Actually, me saying that it took a while for me to get into it, I don't know that I ever truly got into it. It was... So basically you start with Travis, who's played by, again, Robert De Niro. He, after being a veteran in New York City, post-Vietnam War, he's an ex-Marine, he takes on a job as a taxi driver, hence the name of the movie, to cope with chronic insomnia. And as he's driving the cab, you hear you see what he's dealing with, what people are like. He talks about, how some of his cohort won't take people to certain places. They won't go certain places in the city. He says that he's not like that. He'll take anybody anywhere they want to go. He also talks about how, he has to clean up blood out of his cab or other bodily fluids almost every single night. So you kind of hear... And then he also starts to talk about how he thinks that the city has gone to... has been taken over by scum, and he wants that to be fixed. So that's the first several minutes of the movie. It's a little while before you meet Betsy, who is kind of his love interest. There's a couple flashbacks in it. It kind of flashes back to the first time he sees her. He talks about her being the most beautiful person he's ever seen, most beautiful woman he's ever seen. And he gets up the courage to go talk to her and ask her out. Travis, being what he is, he takes her to an adult movie, which is in a movie theater, which used to be a thing. It's not really anymore. And she's disgusted by this and leaves and kind of shuts him out entirely. He tries to talk to her. She kind of doesn't have anything to do with him anymore. And she is a like a high level, I don't know if she's a volunteer, but a high level person in the campaign for a senator who's running for president. This causes Travis to kind of take a downward spiral. He talks with one of his friends about violent thoughts. His friend brushes it off. And basically tells him he needs to go have some fun. So I can't remember at which point it comes first, but at one point he goes and buys a bunch of weapons, a bunch of guns. Let's see here. Yeah, so this happens first. So he decides to buy a bunch of guns. 4 guns. He buys 4 different guns of different ranges and starts practicing shooting. He starts working out a lot to try to take his mind off of the violent thoughts. He starts coming up with where he's going to hide his guns. He comes up with even a trigger on his arm so that he can quick draw with it still being hidden in his sleeve. And he ends up, while it's going on, he ends up shooting and killing a black man trying to rob a convenience store for his friend. And his friend tells him, like, just go, I'll take care of it. Travis says that he doesn't have a permit, and his friend says, go, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Just go. So Travis runs off. And he goes and meets a girl. He goes and meets this girl that he's seen, and this is one of the things that he kind of thinks is kind of he's talked about as being like a scum thing, but he goes and meets this girl who is a prostitute. And earlier in the movie, this is Jodie Foster's character, Iris, by the way. Earlier in the movie, she had gotten into his cab when he was in a rough part of town and told him to just drive. Like, go, take her away. And at that point, her pimp comes in and gets her out of the car and takes her away. And he sees her during the course of the movie. You see her walking around, and he sees her at different spots and things like that. So he goes to find her. He can, tricks the pimp into thinking he wants something, and he just goes to talk to this girl. Jodie Foster in this movie, and this is controversial, and we'll get into that in a minute too, about this whole thing. But Jodie Foster in this movie, playing this role, she plays a 12-year-old, which is terrible. And she was actually 12 when they filmed this, so she was very young, and there was a lot of controversy over that, about her playing this role. She was, to follow rules with psychiatrists, or follow rules of the California, the law about child actors in California. She had to go through meetings with psychiatrists. She had to, she was shown a lot of different things behind the scenes so that it wouldn't, things wouldn't frighten her as much. Now she apparently said that it was uncomfortable on set later because Scorsese didn't know how to talk to her about the scenes. So he would always send Niro to talk to her, and she points to this as him becoming a mentor for her in acting. But so he tries to talk her out of, tries to get her to go be a normal kid, not, be a prostitute anymore. And tells her that he's going to give her some money so that she can leave, go back home. She kind of pushes back a little bit, but he says he's going to give her money to go back home because he's not going to need it much longer, because he's not going to be around much longer. And you realize this whole time you're seeing him kind of spiral, like I said, in this, into this violent kind of mental state. And after this scene, shortly, you see him, he is shaved his head into a mohawk and goes to a rally for the senator that Betsy works for, with all of his guns, and he's just kind of standing in the back. And you learn very quickly that his goal is to assassinate him. He's already been at the rallies before, at different rallies. He's talked to this guy in his cab, talk to the senator in his cab. He's been to different rallies and talked to Secret Service agents at the rallies. And at this point, you realize what he's about to do. You kind of realize by this point what he's about to do or what he's going to attempt to do. He doesn't get very far. One of the Secret Service agents sees him reach into his coat, and they go after him, and he runs off and gets away. That night, he goes. It cuts from that to that evening. He goes to find Iris, and he kills the pimp. He kills the one of the suitor that Iris was with, and the bouncer. He kills all of them. He goes to try to kill himself. Doesn't have enough bullets. He tries several guns, and there's just nothing that happens. And when the cop comes in, he points his finger at his head and acts like he's going to shoot himself. But he falls into a coma. With Iris sitting next to the sofa that he's slouched on, crying because she just watched 3 people get murdered. And he, it cuts to a little bit later. It's kind of showing some video clippings and, or some newspaper articles, and it's reading a note to Travis from Iris's parents that she's now back. Thank you for getting her back to us. She's back in school. She's doing well. And he's in the clippings, you can see that he's hailed as a vigilante and a hero, and that he didn't get charged for the murders. Next scene, it cuts, and he is in his cab. He goes back to being a cabbie. He's in his cab, and he takes a fare, which turns out to be Betsy. And they have a little conversation as he's driving her home. She talks about how she's seen him in the papers. And then at the end, he refuses to take her money and drives off. And that's where the movie pretty much ends. Like I said, it is a tense movie. Very tense movie. If you don't like... if you don't like things that are very deep, and like if you like comedies that aren't, intense like this is not going to be the movie for you. If you like tense thrillers, like very deep thrillers, then that's a weird way to say that. But if you like things like that, then that would be your this would be your type of movie. Did I mention that Martin Scorsese? I think I mentioned his name, but I don't think I mentioned that he actually directed this. Martin Scorsese directed this. Yeah. So, a few things that I found interesting about this. This film got booed at the Cannes Film Festival for its graphic violence. Because the shooting scene at the end is really graphic. However, it did win the top Palme d'Or, I think is how you say it, the Golden Palm. It's French. I don't know French. I took French in high school. I don't really remember that much of it. But anyway, it won. It's the top prize for a director. It did win that, despite being booed for its graphic violence. And Martin Scorsese has said that he thinks they did make changes to get it to an R rating. It was going to be rated X. To get it to an R rating, he muted the colors in the violence scene, the shooting scene at the end, to make it to where it wasn't as noticeable what was going on. And he says it made it, he has said that it made the film better. Now this was, Robert De Niro in this movie's relatively young. He had just, like I said, 1976, he had just come off The Godfather Part 2 a couple years earlier. Playing a young Don Corleone, or in that movie, which we've watched on here as well. And despite winning the Oscar for that, he said that he was only recognized once while driving a cab and doing research for this film. So, interesting that he was only recognized once, especially after winning an Oscar. Other notable things about this film. each of them were only paid about $35,000. Whole film was made for $1.9 million. Whole cast was paid for $200,000. And that it doesn't really say why. Actors took pay cuts to bring the project to life. Yeah. So it made $28 million at the box office, though. Almost $29 million at the box office. This movie also is what John Hinckley Jr. cited for his attempted assassination on President Ronald Reagan in the 80s, in 1981. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity. He apparently was fixated with Jodie Foster, and even shaved his head to look like Travis in this movie, to look like Robert De Niro in this movie. And apparently that even had Scorsese, after he learned about the about Hinckley's association, Scorsese looked at quitting filmmaking, which is understandable. I mean, somebody uses your film as a kind of a way to mimic the assassination of a president, or the attempted assassination of a president, is not something you want. This movie, like I said, it won the top award at the Cannes Film Festival for a director. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, did not win any of them. However, it did win 3 of the BAFTAs it was nominated for, including Best Supporting Actress, Jodie Foster, Best Supporting Actress, and Best Most Promising Newcomer, Jodie Foster, both of those. And Best Score by the composer, what's his name again? Bernard Herrmann, who died, I think it said weeks after finishing this movie, which is crazy. Weeks after finishing the score for this movie. One last thing that I thought was interesting about this, and then I'll let you guys go. I saw that Robert De Niro, this is the movie where Robert De Niro does the you talking to me? You talking to me? He's talking to a mirror. Talking to himself as he's practicing his quick draw with his guns. He apparently improvised that from a comedian, a New York comedian, which is interesting. So, anyway, that is Taxi Driver. 2-hour film. It's kind of slow. I will say that. And it can be kind of difficult to get into if you don't like an intense, like, thriller and a drama. Because, I mean, it's not an action film, it's a drama. So, it was kind of slow. Just gotta say it. Not that it's bad, but it was just kind of slow. I think that is it for this week, guys. Next week, The Deer Hunter, 1978. So, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you thought of this movie. If you've seen it. If not, watch it and let me know what you thought then. And watch The Deer Hunter, and we'll talk about that next week. Until then, I don't know.